What's up? What's up? What is up? It's another Friday, another opportunity to get together and record the experience that is known as the Ball Hog Sports Talk. We're in the building today, y'all, and we're going to have us a good time. The weather is changing. Spring is trying to rear its ugly head, but sports, business, and entertainment never stops. That's why Ball Hog Sports Talk is the highlight of your week. We know it's where sports, business, and entertainment collide, where three businessmen get together and discuss sports in a very entertaining fashion. So if you've never been a part of the experience that is, welcome. Fasten your seatbelt. Let's have a good old time. The whole crew is in the building, so we're going to make sure it's entertaining. We'll do the introductions on the other side of this, but we wanted to make sure that you were aware that we are going to be in the building this week. So pull up a seat, pull up some headphones and earbuds. Make sure that you got a full mug of coffee or whatever it is that is in your drink, because we about to get it in. And with that, let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke, because this is the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw, so come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go. You know what it is? You know what it is? It's the Ball Hog Sports Talk. We in the building, man. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? All of the people from all of the cities, maybe even all of the countries and continents. Welcome to the Ball Hog Sports Talk. The whole crew is in the building. We have from the Middle Coast, thou who shall be known and intergalactically respected as. When you see it walking through your neighborhood, you better believe he is the one that shall be known as and goes by the Big Flow Show.
What's good, America? And if you see me walking through your neighborhood, please don't call the police. I don't have any problems. I don't want any problems. Yes.
Very fair. Very fair. In this climate,
I gotta ask nicely.
I like that disclaimer from the outset. If you see me, I come in peace.
I come in peace. I'm probably walking my dog. My dog doesn't look tough.
Not only do we have from the Middle Coast, my man, the Big Flow Show, but we have from the East Coast, someone who is probably in celebration mode because he is Mr. Beantown. Everything that shall be known as Boston has to come through him and Boston Advance. So we say congratulations and hello as we welcome ETP Ellis, the producer. What's up, my brother?
Good morning. Good morning. Just want to apologize to Janet Jackson for my team messing up her tour schedule. You know, they should have closed it out sooner, but the Celtics, they went into the A, got it done, and now Janet Jackson can have her concert again. So sincere apologies.
Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, had to hold off her. She had to cancel.
She's like, what?
Yo, can't go on, Jason Tatum was a pimp for that, man. That was a butt. Like, no one asked him, unsolicited, in the middle of an interview, he apologizes and acknowledges her legendary career. I think he took a shot. I don't know, but
he didn't want to be on the outs with Janet. He never knows, you know. Sometimes athletes and entertainers run in the same circles. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't want to be denied access to anything.
I think that was a shot and a pretty good one, man, if I must say so myself. Today's episode of the Ball Hog Sports Talk, I'm getting my text out, and I invite everyone else to do the same. Starting off by just sharing the link with people to make sure that they can come on in here and get some of this good old sports business entertainment for the week. But today's episode is going by the title of The Prime Rate. And because the Ball Hog Sports Talk is where sports, business, and entertainment collide, because the Ball Hog Sports Talk, we feel incumbent upon us to teach our amazing family that listens on a week in, a week out basis, those who listen to our podcast, we feel that we have an obligation to also teach while we entertain The prime rate is a financial term normally used in the lending space. It is among the most widely used benchmarks in setting home equity lines of credit and credit card rates. The prime rate is like the center of finance in terms of lending. It allows us to understand the rates of other lending opportunities out there, rates. And so the prime rate for us, though, came on the heels of a week where there was only one nationally televised spring football game. And you would think that it would be in some warm climate, but no, that nationally televised spring football game was in Colorado. And the cameras were there. And it was sold out. And the fans were there. And the boosters were there. And the celebrities were there. You name it, people descended upon Colorado to watch a spring game because of Coach Prime. And so the prime rate, while influenced and encouraged by Coach Prime, amongst other things, the prime rate is going to start, the prime rate being this episode of the Ball Hawk Sports Talk, is going to start there in Colorado. Because while we are celebrating Coach Prime and the magnetic personality that is drawn in the national media, that's drawing in the Colorado faithful, such that you see a side-by-side of last year's spring game and this year's spring game, and you understand that the prime effect, the prime rate, the fact that Coach Prime is there is changing things. The celebrities, the boosters, the cameras. But not everyone, I think, is responding well to the prime rate. After we watched a interesting and entertaining spring game, make sure I got my numbers right. Coach Prime, who announced at the very beginning that when I'm coming, baby, I'm bringing my luggage. It's going to be Louis. It's going to be Gucci. I'm bringing my luggage. And I'll just admit, what I didn't appreciate when he said, I'm bringing my luggage, I didn't appreciate that meant that the other pieces of luggage is several pieces of luggage he got to throw out. Since the spring game, which is not even since the spring game, there have been 28 players from that team that were in the spring game, 28 since Monday, that have hopped in that portal. You remember Coach Brown said, y'all might want to hop in that portal. That thing popping right now. That portal popping. 41 players from last year's Colorado team, or let's call it this year's spring roster, 41 players have entered that portal since April 15th. Tax day. 41. That wasn't that long ago, y'all. 15 days ago, 41 players. There are 55 total players that have Colorado Buffalo designation on their tag that are in the transfer portal. Coach Brown is doing what he said he was going to do, and it's not being received well by everybody.
It's not pretty.
So let's start there, right? Because there's a new sheriff in town, and they got him wearing the cowboy hat and everything, man. I did Coach Brown. But this new sheriff in town and the prime rate that Coach Prime has created, the rate of people getting out of there, the mass exodus and hopping in that portal, the rate of other players hopping in the portal from the other side and trying to get in there, the rate of celebrities. Do we think this is a good thing for Colorado, for the conference, for college football, and its impact on the rest of the college football landscape? I know you've been dying to get into this Big Flo show. Big Flo been texting us. And I know what side you land on it, but I gotta hear it. Now the people need to hear it. Before you respond, I want you to make sure that I want you to be fire high. I want you to be just on the edge of your seat trying to weigh in on this. So I'll say this last thing for all of you who have joined us. We thank you. We ask you kindly to like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast. You can help us reach more people in this sports business and entertainment space. After that PSA, I go to you, Big Flo Show. The prom race in full effect. Transfer portal is booming when it comes to Colorado. What say you?
I say, I always thought that when the sheriff wore a body cam, it would reduce police brutality. But the brutality is too much for me. It's too much because he's got the cameras on there. Everybody's seeing what's going on. And I guess, information is key and whatever. But this is showing an ugly side. I fear that it's going to go too far. What happens is things go without a lot of rules. And we wonder why there's so many rules in society. And it's because things go too far. And I think he's at the point now, you've got guys who just transferred in. And they're not even a season's gone by, and they're transferring out. They're doing different things. The Michigan
kid, Upshaw. Yep.
Upshaw comes in from Michigan. Now he's coming back. We probably got room for you in Evanston, but I'm not sure. Talk to your people. At the time, I just think we worked a long time. We meaning just collectively football world that I'm just attaching myself to kind of get the stigma of athletes not being student athletes and trying to kind of get back towards it. They worked a very long time towards trying to get graduation rates up, and schools have made great strides to get graduation rates higher than they were previously. And Karen and the NCAA stepped in, and if you didn't graduate a certain amount of people, I think you lost scholarships, and there was some different things that kind of went on behind the scenes to try to prop up this athlete term. Now the transfer portal comes in, and they're giving rights to the player, and with that comes a price. We all wanted the players not to get penalized if they left and whatever. But when you look at what's going on with Coach Prime and using words like "you're cut," "you have to leave," there's been other schools that I won't call out, but I've been known. I've heard stories about them saying, "Okay, we're going to medically retire you. You can still get your education." Kids leaving in the middle of the summer, doing different things like that. And the school tries to have a kind of a more humane side under the guise that you are a student athlete, under the guise that I told your parents that when you come to this university that we're going to turn you into a man, and we're going to, get you a nice education, a nice job. It's going to be a great alumni work, whatever. And I just feel like Coach Prime is at the point where he's just to hell with that. So I don't even think the kids should be even going to class at Colorado because you obviously don't really give a shit about these people's education. They're coming in, they're going, you're kicking the guys out. You bring in your luggage and you return. What's the return policy on your luggage? Huh? Once you've taken a couple trips with Louis, aren't you supposed? Isn't it yours now? You bringing it back now? You kicking out guys that you just got there? I don't know. I asked this question to you in the chat this week, and I said, would you let your son go play for Coach Prime?
And what was my answer?
You said yeah.
I said yeah.
But I don't think you love your kids, because if you love a kid, how do you put your son in that environment? And the question I have to everybody out there is, what is he offering in return for all this cutthroatness? He's not Alabama. I'm looking at the first round. I didn't see anybody that has ever played for Coach Prime that went in the first round last night. I've never seen him win a championship. We've never seen him develop a player. Hold on, though. But he's putting the cart before the horse. Right now, he's telling you, I'm it. I'm the Mecca. Don't go to Alabama. Come to me. Don't go to Notre Dame. Come to me. Don't go to Northwestern. Come to me. What are you offering? Colorado's not a bad school, but it's not an amazing education. You're definitely not going to get much of a chance to get many classes under your belt. Some dudes transferring, they don't even have 5 credit hours, and they're already transferring the hell up out of there. He's not. He just doesn't have. He hasn't done anything from a coaching standpoint. Obviously, he's done amazing stuff as a football player. He's done amazing stuff as a marketer of himself, and as a byproduct of that, the program gets a lot. But I saw him try to, say Travis Hunter's a top 5 pick. Is it Travis Hunter?
Travis Hunter. Yep,
Travis Hunter's a top 5 pick. And I'll give him that. He propped his player up. He did whatever. But that's really the first time I've seen him, prop somebody up. I think he did an illegal recruiting thing after that because he started talking about another player publicly. I think you can't do that till they sign. But that's not for me to be the prime police. But at the end of the day, I just don't know what he's offering you that you can't get somewhere else that's proven without. I mean, obviously he's the most volatile program in the country by far at this point, right? So,
volatile,
at this point, right now, he's proven to you that the numbers say he's the most volatile program. What are you getting in exchange for that? What is he offering you in exchange for that?
So I know you're asking it rhetorically, and I do want our audience to weigh in. But before I answer it, I'm gonna throw it over to you, ETP, because you said that, and you started off sort of in jest, but you talked about the police brutality and the cameras being on. And my quick answer to you would be that the cameras are on. He is offering you, like you just talked about Travis Hunter, who will be entering his sophomore year. He had some good plays for Jackson State, but as a top 5 pick, that is now in the sports world, household name.
He was the number 1 player in the nation. Wherever he went to school, he'd be a household.
Fair. I bet you can't tell me who the number 2 player was in the nation that year. My point is that Coach Prime, without Googling, Coach Prime, whether you like it or not, has an effect on people's overall the shine that they get. ETP, I'm gonna throw it to you because I wanted you to answer the same question, right? We got this prime rate, and the prime rate now is people entering the portal and trying to transfer there. But this prime rate, I think, also has this undercurrent story about just where we are with college football, and whether you like it or not, it seems to suggest that Big Flo Show doesn't like it. By putting a camera on it and bringing attention to it, he is ripping the Band-Aid off. He's like, let's stop playing with this nuanced student-athlete thing. Let's stop playing with this in-between hybrid amateurism thing. Coach Prime used the verb, you're cut, because it seems as though Coach Prime is treating them like professionals. And I know that these are young adults, but indeed, this is big boy business now. Has Coach Prime taken it too far? I'll ask you a little more directly to weigh in response to the Big Flo Show. What say you, ETP?
Yeah, I think the tension behind it is really about, what's the objective, right? So if you're a student athlete and you are focused on a degree and you're not necessarily as assertive or intentional about trying to be a professional athlete, then I think all of these other considerations come into play. But ultimately, I mean, where it comes down to is Deion Sanders went to Jackson State. He brought a whole lot of attention and investment and structure into a program that was lacking, won and had success, won conference championships, built up a program that, didn't have the resources and got them on ESPN, got a whole lot of awareness to the program. And so at this point, you said a lot of what you're asking me already, but ultimately he's just leveraging the idea that this is a professional developmental process. It's a program that's focused on gathering talent, preparing them and promoting them to become professional athletes. A lot of them are not going to, but that's the standard he's setting. That's the opportunity he's giving them in terms of, the amount of marketability, the awareness, the publicity. It's a parade and a spectacle every time, Deion Sanders is part of anything. We can see that just from how we're talking about the spring game. Like we're talking about a sold out spring game. That
Colorado spring game. And a 1-11 team spring game.
And that was the other thing. They're coming from the basement of the conference. So there's got to be a lot of change that happens. And also when they hired Deion Sanders to be the head coach of this program, they didn't even have the finances or the budget to pay him. So they have to go out and figure out how they're going to pay him after they sign the contract. So clearly there's a sense of urgency on all fronts that this program needs to be turned around. And unfortunately, this is the way that it needs to go. And, the thing about it is he's getting a lot of this backlash, but since the transfer portal has started, it wasn't just about player empowerment. It also turned into a way where the programs were able to basically, change, cut losses and, players that didn't pan out, or go after players that are already developed a year or two that will fit into their program versus having to go out and bring in a high school kid and hope that they develop and hope that they stay committed and hope that they pan out to what they project. But it cuts both ways at this point. And so, ultimately, anybody that's upset about it has, just like Big Flo, you have every right to be upset about it. But I think the only idea about it, the division is this an NFL pipeline, or is this an institution that wants to give, young adults foundational education and support to become professional in whatever they want to do and find a home that they're going to invest their resources in for the next 4 or 5, however many years, to get that degree. And clearly that's not the signal that we're getting.
No. And that's so. And look, here's why I do respect Coach Prime. And before I even respond, I'm going to ask our audience, I want you guys to weigh in, because Big Flo Show is absolutely honest when he says he sent that question to us. Would you send your son to go play for Coach Prime? I ask all of you that question, and if you don't have a son, just make it hypothetical. Would you send your child to go play for Coach Prime under the current circumstances, knowing that the transfer portal has a very healthy two-way hinge at this point when it comes to Colorado? That thing going in and out right now. That thing moving. The hinges are working on both sides when it comes to the transfer portal. Would you send your child there? I ask you guys that, so please weigh in. And then I say this to you, Big Flo. The prime rate, to me, the reason I like what he's doing is because historically, whether you want to point it out on the NFL level or even the collegiate level, I'll even talk about my own university when I say this. Tyrone Willingham was the only coach in Notre Dame history that Notre Dame didn't honor his entire contract, where he had to leave prematurely. Historically, black coaches ain't given.
Charlie White.
No, even Charlie Weiss was after.
Until then.
Yeah, until then. Historically, in college football, black coaches ain't given a whole bunch of time to transition and work it out. And just as many people, and you got a good glimpse at it this week, just as many people that are supporting Coach Prime and traveling to the games and celebrating his meteoric rise as a coach, you got just as many people watching, hoping he fails. And I think Coach Prime understands that. Coach Prime has seen historically that black coaches don't get extra time to figure it out. And so I salute Coach Prime for addressing the elephant in the room and saying, I got to get this thing done now because I don't know what tomorrow looks like. And unfortunately, there's going to be some unintended consequences. Some people in the way catching innocent, so some bullets are going to hit people that might be innocent. And that is just the nature of business. College football is a business. And I love that, not only is he bringing a camera and highlighting all of it, but behind that camera is his own son. Not only is he saying we're going to do it my way and bring in my Louis and my Gucci, but a part of that luggage, 2 of those pieces, his own sons. And his daughter, I'm celebrating what Coach Prime is doing. I feel like forever there's been this nepotism and this good old boys club that embraces and protects a certain hue of coaches that tend to be white. I like the fact that Coach Prime is doing it. And I hate the fact that there are young people that are caught up in the crossfires of it. But even with the most notorious story, the story that this all started in our inner circle, the Ball Hog Sports Talk inner circle, because the Big Flow Show shared an article and it talked about this offensive lineman that got cut. And he was talking about how Coach Prime basically treated him like the Grim Reaper. And we call the Grim Reaper the person that does all the transactions and informs players that they will no longer be there and bring your playbook. That's how we refer to that person in the NFL. Well, we hadn't really experienced it in college. And so this article is about how, Coach Prime never really got to know the players that were there prior to his arrival, and the players that were on this probably short list of you are the expendable luggage. And he didn't really even talk to us. And I'm reading the story and feeling sorry for the young man. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that's not even a story if it's not at Colorado under this regime with Coach Prime coaching. There are a lot of players that were gently nudged, if not straight out forcibly pushed into the transfer portal throughout the country. Very few of them have a national article that is circulating worldwide, internationally rather, circulating worldwide with their story in it. So even though he lost, because he won't be at Colorado anymore, if that's his goal, he still won. His story is being told. Other people are going to know about him. And this prime rate it can be ugly because of how upfront and honest it is. But I think long term, everyone has a chance to benefit from the platform that indeed Coach Prime creates.
And that's where I would disagree. I don't think I think that, Travis Hunter, he's going to benefit. Shakur Sanders, whatever, the quarterback, obviously his name is Sanders, but he's benefiting from it. I just keep going back to this, the kind of players that he's trying to get, right? He wants to win a national championship like every coach should be trying to do. Let me take a step back. I don't fault Colorado. I think it's proven to be a great hire already. They sold out season tickets. They sold out the spring game. They're on TV. They're getting – no one talks about Colorado a year ago. So Colorado absolutely is benefiting.
Yeah, we're 3 years plus into the Ball Hog Sports Talk collectively. I don't think we've ever talked about Colorado before, Coach, right? Ever.
Never.
Right?
We've never talked about it. So they made a great hire. They won. Someone else should be thinking, how do I get Prime in my school, right? If their goal is to turn their program around. When they told the people, we don't have this money, but you had to give us the money, they already got it back, right? They sold all their season tickets for a year. They did whatever. Now there's a big thing to see if he's going to win. I actually hope he's successful. I don't dislike Deion Sanders. I never disliked him. I thought I think he's a good dude or whatever. But I just think the method that he's working, I don't like the method. I can't remember his name. The head coach for Michigan State. Someone will put it up there. But anyway, the head coach for Michigan State, Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker, whose now nickname is Mel Fucker at the that's what they call him at school. He came in there, he pushed 40 people out, right? Without the same fanfare that Prime is getting, right? So that worked well. They had a really good season, and then they were really bad. People don't really want to be. People really don't want be associated with Michigan State. This is kind of a grand opening, grand closing, right? He had a good year. It looked like, oh man, this is how we want to go do it. But I think what you're going to realize, until you have payroll, real payroll, where people are actually getting paid the way you're getting paid in the NFL, minimums and all that type of stuff, and they're not employees. And most of these people are at-will voluntary workers. And there's a very few things. Your team chemistry and the family atmosphere that you have to build. Everyone talks about family. Everyone talks about family schools because that's what you have to sell. because again, people, when you're in high school, for the most part, people aren't paying for their education anyway. Kids aren't really paying for their education. You know what I mean? Their parents are paying, or they're free public school students. So although a free college education is good, but since if you've never had to pay for one, it doesn't sit as well.
You don't understand the value, right?
You don't understand the value. It's, everything's been free. My kids been eating free their whole life, right? So it's no different now, right? So as far as they're concerned, they don't know my pain. So you got to keep that family structure. You have to keep something with the until you're paying people on the payroll. And I just think once you lose it, going back to Michigan State, you watch a Michigan State got in that fight in the tunnel with Michigan this past year, right?
Nuck if you buck.
When I saw that, the first thing, and I know players that play for Michigan State well, right? And I talked about it. The number one thing I noticed when I saw that fight was that is not a family. And the reason why that's not a family is if either of us went into a tunnel right now, any of us, I consider us the Ball Hawk family, and one of us gets into a fight, the other two are either going to pull you away or swing with you, right? Because that's right. What family does. Fair. If you look at that Michigan State locker room, I could tell the chemistry on that team is nothing because people were walking around like there's nothing to see here. You're seeing your teammate make a horrible mistake involved in something. You either make that mistake with them and we both take the consequences, or you break it up. They don't give a damn. They walked away. So I'm saying the toxic environment that Colorado is going to have now with all this in and out, when you aren't paying most of these players and you're coming in here trying to get this education that you really can't even – you can't go to Colorado thinking I'm going to graduate Colorado, right? You can't be going there thinking I'm going to have the time to graduate. You're spending time in there playing a little football for no money and doing whatever, trying to get in these dorms. There's going to be such a toxic environment in this thing. The implosion, the fights, the people doing crazy stuff, walking off the field and leaving in the middle of the season. It is going to get crazy. That's just my prediction because you're still dealing with children.
But yeah, no, I think your point is fair, and it's not, there's definitely some credibility or some validity to it, but this is the first year, right? Like this is the overhaul, this is the reset. If this happens, if we start to see this type of a revolving door at an extreme level, like year over year, I think you definitely have a much stronger point. I think right now is he has been tasked with coming in, cleaning house, and making this a respectable, competitive program. And with that comes a lot of change. And who knows? I mean, we're assuming that, oh yeah, he told 55 guys, pack your bags, you got to go. Whereas maybe there were two hinges, right? Like there's some guys that are like, all right, this isn't for me. I want to go somewhere where, I'm confident that I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to go do that somewhere else. Or the system doesn't work for me. I'm making a choice. Or I just balled out at the spring game. Let me go see if I can get picked up by Auburn or somebody else because the spotlight was on me. So we don't really know. But I think to your point, if this becomes the trend, even a much stronger point. But right now, it's just hard to say because one, we don't see the results of it. And two, this is him coming in on a very, I wouldn't say it's a short leash, but there's immediate expectations of him as a coach and as a program out the gate. Like they have to really, he has put a target on his entire program's back because the expectations are super high based on the way he markets his brand and the organization or the program at this point. So you might be right, but I think it's only like one data point on what we'll see. Because if this happens next year and everybody that he brought in is now leaving, yeah, that's a problem. But if everybody that he brought in this year stays and they have a strong season and they're building and building and building, then the way the sausage was made wasn't necessarily a bad way to do it.
And I would agree with that. And I think at this point, I look at it and say, if he was Nick Saban, if he was, I can't think of another very winning college, Mike Tomlin or somebody like that who's shown you, I've done this before. Trust me, I know the way. Take Nick Saban. I know the way. I can get you to the NFL. I can get you a championship. It's going to be cutthroat, but this is what's in the tunnel. Fine. I just think Deion Sanders hasn't done anything as a coach that would make you succumb and put your kid in that situation because Colorado is not an unbelievable school. He has never won a championship at any level, and he has never put anybody in the NFL at any level. So
but why,
that is what I'm saying.
why do you dismiss the work that he did at Jackson State? Not to say that it's like he got them to a, you know,
and he did win a state championship in high school. Stop playing with that man.
Man, in the baby leagues. Ask anybody from Texas. They don't.
Yeah,
it was
2A. It was 1A with 1 star.
Why do I dismiss Jackson State? Is because Jackson State he took Power 5 kids and he went and he took second place in a FCS environment. So now you got to go do it with the big boys. I hope he does it, but until he does it, I can't imagine being part of the process right now. As opposed to if I'm the kind of player he wants to can go somewhere else that's proven.
I mean,
done. Why would you risk your 4 years of your eligibility with him?
But you're saying that this is like a negative. He brought Power 5 talent to the HBCUs. Like that alone is a major, from my perspective, that's a major accomplishment to be able to recruit talent to be like, hey, let's build this thing over here where you might be able to go to a Power 5 school or, you know, whatever other opportunities there are. But believe in this. Let's build this, and we're also going to win. We're going to be a winning program. We're going to win the conference championship. They didn't win it the last season because he was already out the door at that point. So it kind of was what it was. But I don't know. I just think that like we're not giving it, or I don't think there's enough respect being given to what he accomplished at Jackson State, given all of the factors against him that he publicly even said about the lack of resources, the lack of money, all of these things, the lack of support, and generally speaking, HBCUs are not invested in their football programs because they are not profit centers like they are in the SEC or the Pac-12 or any of the, you know, Big Ten, etc. So I think that it's different. But I do think that I'm sure he went to a 1-11 in Colorado and said, look what I did with essentially nothing that gave me any inclination that I have this success. But look what I was able to accomplish. That got him the job at Colorado. And I do think, I mean, they were playing on ESPN. They had the HBCU combine, like all of these things.
Game Day went to one of their games.
Game Day went to Jackson State. Like the
first time ever.
The HBCU. Like that's the point, right? And so the fact that he was able to pull that off, call it timely, call it, you know, opportunistic, whatever you want to call it, he did it. Nobody else did it.
I'm gonna say is name 2 players besides Hunter and his son. Name 2 more players.
The linebacker just transferred there, but I can't give you his name.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so what's in it for them?
I don't follow it with the names.
The only thing I'm trying to say is all of that is great, but what's in it for them? Like the people who did that,
now there's players that left Jackson State and now they're at Colorado, so they're at a major D1 program
and other schools. Some transferred went to other PWIs or Power 5, whatever you want to call it. But I'll say this because we're gonna wrap it up. He's got, I think, also history on his side. No one had ever done it. Several coaches, very amazing, well-respected coaches, went to HBCU programs. No one was able to bolster the profile, get the attention, garner the attention that he did, attract some of the Power 5 caliber recruits that he did. So I think that is something. And win. He didn't win it all, to your credit. I admit that, Big Flow Show. But what he was able to do, which is why you said he's never accomplished anything as a coach, this week they also started highlighting the fact that Deion, Coach Prime, is one of the few players ever in the NFL to score 6 different ways: kickoff return, punt return, interception return, fumble recovery return. He caught a pass and he ran a rushing touchdown. Scored 6 different ways in the NFL.
How does that help my son?
Say again.
I just want to know how to help my son. How does that help my son?
How does that help my son?
No, I know you were getting to that, so I just wanted you to get to figure out.
No, I don't know that it does, but I think that because he is such a, from a recruit standpoint, I couldn't answer that and say it does help your son, because I do think we have to have a little more time. But the culture that you just described, and you said it at Michigan State with their exodus of transfer portal kids, and now you alluded to it potentially being the same thing in Colorado. The truth of the matter is that transfer portal more broadly, not just about Deion, the prime rate, the rate in which people are coming and going, has had an impact on college football. Absolutely. And indeed, right, Notre Dame now is going to start a new kid, Sam Hartman, the kid who started Tyler Buckner, in the bowl game is now transferred. He's going to Alabama. And I guess it's just this new thing of players coming and going that we've got to get used to. And so it makes you think that it's no longer an amateur sport. It is indeed a pro sport. Let's call it the development league, the G League of the NFL. But there's a professionalism aspect to it that I think Deion is taking full advantage of. Let's hop into the actual professional football in order to transition. And let's talk about this NFL draft, because day one is in the books and the first round, right? We talk about the prime rate. The thing about the NFL draft that everyone needs to know is while you don't know, it's all a gamble. From the first pick to Mr. Irrelevant, which is the name deemed given to the last player drafted in the 7th round. From the very first pick all the way down to Mr. Irrelevant, it's all a gamble. You don't know who's going to pay off. What I will say about it is this. The money that you make, the slot that you are into, like if I can be the 9th pick versus the 10th pick, that money, the guarantees up front with our signing bonuses as players, is the only thing that you have in the bank. Your rate, the prime rate that you create for yourself, is to have the best draft position possible. So when I hear about players doing silly things like failing a drug test or showing up late for a team interview, it just boggles my mind, because that's money that you never get back. One draft spot lower changes the amount of money you make up front. Not drastically, but the first round is the creme de la creme of protecting a status. When you are a first rounder, you have given yourself the protection of that signing bonus. When you are a first rounder, you have given yourself the protection of having every ample opportunity to prove everybody right or wrong, but you get chances as a first rounder. Highlights from the first round, ETP, I don't know if you saw anything last night. There were 3 of the first 4 draft picks were black quarterbacks. In 2023, 3 of the first 4 picks in last night's NFL draft were black quarterbacks. Worthy of mentioning in a time where, we're still trying to answer certain things, and CJ Stroud had some answers that he had to provide for his Wonderlic test, which is sort of an aptitude for quarterbacks, and it's supposed to be a litmus test to tell us how you process football. He didn't score very high, but he still is the number 2 pick. ETP, anything from the first round that stood out for you? Any of your highlights from your team, any other teams? 2 running backs in the top 12. The running back position was considered to be sort of obsolete when it came to the first round, because you could go find you a running back off an Amazon truck. Delivering Amazon packages could be the next starting running back. But they decided to go away with that theory last night. The 2 of the top 12 picks were running backs. The Dolphins didn't have a pick because of the integrity scandal and the whole Brian Flores accusing them of tanking. And so they didn't have a first pick. So there are only 31 picks last night. Anything else stood out?
So bad. One person's dream got shattered because these dumbasses over there doing cheating or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But you think it's like one more person could have been the first rounder.
One more person.
Like whoever gets picked first this time is like, man, see, I should have been the first rounder, except for these fools taking on purpose.
That's my God, bro. Stop messing with me, man. Talking about St. Thomas. So, I forgot to say this because it came out this week too. Every year they produced a graphic that shows the high school that has been the curator of the most NFL draft picks. And of course, the illustrious St. Thomas Aquinas of the greater Fort Lauderdale, Florida area is still in the number 1 spot as producing the most NFL draft picks. Yeah. All time, that is. IMG is now second, catching up quickly because IMG ain't been around. They ain't had a football program for about 5 years. They're already second. I'm not going to get to the IMG story, but it was sold for
1.5
billion. So if you don't think there's a lot of value in sports, just go research that story. But after my tangent, anybody got anything from the first round last night worthy of discussion? Anything shocked you? We saw some people in the green room that didn't get drafted. The quarterback Will Levis is there. You got on your Northwestern shirt. The offensive tackle from Northwestern ended up being the third offensive tackle. We thought he was going to be the second, but still very high pick, 11, 12.
The Bears missed out. They messed up again. I don't know about the guy they picked. I thought they would get Parrish, him, or the DT from Georgia. I can't believe they didn't pick him. But hopefully this guy from Tennessee that the Bears picked is good. But I just want to let you know, parents out there with 5-star athletes, right? There's still a school you can go to and get an education, not be shown the door, and go in the first round. I'm not going to say any names, but there's schools out there that you could do that, right? There's schools out there where you can still send your son and have him be treated like family and grow into a man, right? Schools out there that's not sending 55 people to the portal every day and telling them that they're cut after the spring game. Matter of fact, some schools don't even have a spring game, but I'm not going to name any names. I'm just
you do realize that you accuse Coach Prime of illicit or illegal recruiting. I think what you just did on this show, Mike.
I didn't name a single name. If you figure out the school I was talking about, then you are smart.
And you just one of them smart people.
And I'm not swag.
Yeah, you ain't swag. I think uneventful for the most part. The NFL got lucky last night, and the NFL, from a business standpoint, right, is doing a good job of trying to move the NFL draft, the actual show, the production that is the draft. The thing that you see on TV is in Kansas City this year, but they're moving locations, I think, to engage their consumers and their fans. But pretty uneventful last night, other than, people in the green room not being drafted. Joey Porter Jr. was one of the people that wasn't drafted that was on hand. It's got to feel some type of way. I hate when the cameras follow those kids. Will Levis, the quarterback, I thought did the best job of keeping a poker face. But it's never good to see the kids that came. The NFL invited them there. So, let's make sure we appreciate all the parts. The NFL invites you to be there because they think you're going to be a first rounder. You don't just show up. But it's never fun to watch the kid that didn't get drafted.
There was a kid, though, out there. I think he was playing bidwist with his mom. Did you see that in the draft?
He's playing bidwist.
He's over there. They're looking at cards. They're playing cards, and they're him and his
trying
mom.
to get
trying to pass
anxiety,
the time, man. Trying to
blow the anxiety up.
Yeah.
Please weigh in for our audience. Weigh in. What do you think was the biggest surprise from last night's NFL first round of last night's NFL draft? Who do you think was the odds-on favorite, or who do you think did the best last night in the first round of the draft? Did your team draft appropriately last night? And weigh in. Let me know if you guys watched it. There was a game that was on, NBA playoff game, but NFL got lucky because there was only one NBA playoff game last night. Now, there was an NHL playoff game, but even that game, New Jersey pretty much dominated the Rangers last night. So it was a blowout. If there were ever going to be some good ratings for the NFL draft during a time where you got NBA and NHL playoffs, last night would have been the night. Only one NBA game, and it was okay. The NHL highlight game, and it was kind of a blowout. So it's interesting to see what the ratings were because people don't watch the draft like they used to. Anything stood out to you guys before we move on from the NFL draft?
Big Ten and SEC both had 9, so it still counts. It still matters what conference you go to. They both had 9 first rounders. Pretty good. I don't know. I'm stealing this one from your man. Alabama, first time they ever had the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, ETP just told us that. We both were shocked. Yeah. First time Alabama had the first pick of the first round.
I thought that's just the fact that they don't really produce quarterbacks, and typically that pick.
Yeah, but how many DNs and offensive tackles?
They go early. I mean, they got the third pick too, so they've done that a lot. I just think the first pick in the draft so heavily favors the quarterback, and they don't usually have a quarterback. I mean, Tua probably had the best chance to do it if he didn't get hurt. I think that's the only reason that makes sense because they've dominated the NFL draft for years and years and years now.
I'm just putting up still going through, ETP and I, we see all of this vitriol that you're receiving because of your prime attack. They still coming. They coming at you because of your prime attack in the live audience. Y'all keep it coming. Y'all let Big Flo know he wrong since he going to talk about Coach Prime. But yeah, let us know what else you thought about the draft. ETP, anything stood out to you before we move on?
No, just Bill Belichick always pulls off something crazy during the draft. Picked
Yet
up
again.
Christian Gonzalez, traded down and picked up Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, who is arguably or being talked about as the steal of the draft. So never count out Belichick. We'll see. They're still favorites to be in the basement of the AFC East, but I think that was probably the most interesting outside of anything that you didn't talk about.
Well, the other one was, I see my girl, what's up, Michelle still? What's up, Sarah? I see she says the Colts. Now, the Colts pick was very interesting. They got your boy, the quarterback. And while I think his pajama workouts, the combine and the pro day were amazing, his game film just didn't do it for me. He was like 55% completion percentage. Somebody risked their career on that pick last night. We'll see if it pans out. Whoever was the most vocal in the room or throughout the process that got them to the point where they spent the 4th round draft pick on a guy that has limited film, on a guy that had limited productivity on field, on a guy that, for all intents and purposes, when you look at statistical output, does not compare to the other 2 quarterbacks in that top 4. Somebody risked their career on that pick last night. We'll see if it pans out. What do you guys think?
That same team risked their career on Jeff Saturday coming in to coach their team. So it seems pretty powerful. History says they don't care what everybody think. Somebody just put up, the first round. I didn't even think about the fact that the Eagles Super Bowl and they got what arguably is the best player in the draft.
Oh, his highlights. Jalen Carter's highlights. I know he got into all the trouble. We talked about him on the show. Jalen Carter is the defensive tackle from the University of Georgia that was involved in some tragic vehicular accident and was basically summoned with an arrest warrant at the combine. That Jalen Carter still went in the top 10. He went 9th, I think, to the Eagles.
How did the Eagles have the they traded with the Bears, but they were at 10 before they traded with the Bears, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
How are you the Super Bowl runner-up and you picking the top 10? There should be a rule against that. There should be some sort of banishment.
But Jalen Carter's highlights, he was throwing 300-pound men around like they didn't even belong, like dish-ragging them. His highlights, and I always look forward to who has the best highlight. To me, D tackles, is hard to have just such a highlight film that's head and shoulders above everybody. It's a D tackle, right? Everything is right in between the trenches. It's not much going on there. To me, his highlight was by far the best we saw last night. And I love receivers and quarterbacks and running backs and defensive backs and picking the ball, but I just complete dominance. And the Eagles got him. Ain't no fair, man. It's how the rich keep getting richer. Let's transition a little bit from the guys that eventually will play the NFL. The guys that are locked into those rookie contracts that could be a bit challenging, to some other guys. Aaron Rodgers is officially a New York Jet. Aaron Rodgers being in a New York Jet sweatsuit or hoodie looked kind of weird. But Aaron Rodgers being in a New York Jet hoodie has the whole New York metropolitan area booming, baby. You can't tell New York Jets that they ain't about to win something. I see my man Coach Patrick on here. You can't tell these New York Jets fans that this the move here, baby. They're going to get it done. Simple yes or no. I'm going to start with you on this one, Big Flow Show. Is Aaron Rodgers, is he going to be the difference maker on this team with a young roster that has been successful, but successful in terms of statistical stats, offensively and defensively? They had the rookie of the year on both sides of the ball came from that roster. So you factor in a savvy veteran with the history that he has and Some would argue, a lot of pundits argue, maybe one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. You put that into the mix. Is this instant success for the New York Jets? Would you bet not the extra money? Would you bet the necessary money on it? That this Jets team is going to win with this quarterback and that roster. What say you?
Aaron is a great quarterback. I'm happy not to see him anymore. So let me just start with that. I'm happy to see him out of our division, so he can sit there and discount double check us twice a year. I don't like that. So I'm happy to see him gone. Do I think that it's going to change the Jets organization? I think it's a great pickup for them in some ways. I think that it's worth the risk right now because the Jets haven't been a championship team since I've been born. So I don't know if they won back in the day, leather helmets, but they never won a championship in my day. So they had to kind of go for broke and see if they can get somebody to capitalize on what they have. Mm-hmm. The only thing you worry about with the Aaron Rodgers is just he's such a diva and such a he just pulls antics. You know what I mean? I think it said a lot when Devontae Adams left after he signed. You know, you're playing with the supposedly, you know, one of the top 10 quarterbacks probably of all times, and you're like, I'm going out of here. I'm leaving here. I think he can rub the locker room the wrong way, and he can mess up the chemistry. But if he doesn't do that, I think they should do better than they've done before. That's all I should say.
ETP, yes or no? Aaron Rodgers, this roster, this moment, at this point in his career, with this New York media chomping at the bit to analyze everything from how he flips his hair to how many steps he takes walking up. Like, New York media doesn't miss anything. And I know Aaron Rodgers was they don't call it the Hobbit. What's that? When you go into hibernation, whatever. I know he is used to that with the Green Bay media. But New York, they're going to find you, baby. Do you think that this will be a magical connection with Aaron on this roster? What say you, ETP?
I mean, there's a lot of variables, and there's conversations about now that he's going to bring another Super Bowl to the one that they won with Joe Namath. And he said he made mention of Super Bowl trophies lonely, and I think setting some expectations. Jets fans have a tendency to have some lofty expectations, and
you can say it.
Be a little bit delusional in terms of what the success is going to be.
Crackheads. Go ahead and say it. They act like crackheads. And my coach right there, Jets. You hear the obnoxious spelling of the word as we even discuss this topic. You can hear it in the back of your mind.
Yeah,
will they be fulfilled?
I mean, it's not like, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever played. He hasn't had a ton of – it's not like he's coming in with a ton of postseason success. He's getting older. I think he's definitely makes them better, but does that mean that they're going to be better than third in the division? I don't know. I mean, the AFC is just strong. So the idea that they're going to be able to, deliver on something, maybe they win a round or two in the playoffs, but I don't see anything. I'll be surprised if they do anything above that, but there'll be a lot of eyes on them at least.
Then we get to the other quarterback.
Maybe they should get Coach Prime over there.
Hey, who knows?
Cut everybody. So you can sign up in the roster.
Coach Prime, baby. Then there's the other quarterback, the story that has persisted for a long time, but it connects us to the Nicole Lynn and the Jalen Hurts story of last week. Move over because we have a new designee as the highest paid player by maybe $1 or $2, but it exceeds the Jalen Hurts contract. And there is no agent to mention because there is no agent involved. Lamar Jackson, Action Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens have finally come to terms on a contract. We have literally talked about this for 3 years, but they have finally come to terms on a contract. I feel like, man, there's no way that this could be a harmonious ending. there's just too much. You talk about Dion and the prime rate. It's too much baggage here. Is there too much hurt for this to translate into success? I'm happy for Lamar Jackson. I'm happy that he was able to do it without an agent, because the entire construct of ownership putting pressure on the Ravens to not sign, like that whole myth that was happening, that theory has been debunked. But do we think it's going to work out and it'll have a harmonious ending? ETP. I know we're tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired of talking about the Ravens' inability to sign or Lamar Jackson's inability or unwillingness to sign. But their impasse has been at the core of our conversation forever. So I'm happy to put it to rest now that there is a contract. But just very quickly and directly, do we think that this is going to be something where they can come back together, mend the fences, repair the relationship, and most importantly, go win? What say you, ETP?
I mean, Lamar Jackson he's a baller, right? Like there's been all of this circus in the media around his contract for multiple years, but every time he got on the field, he balled out. Like the only challenge with him was if he can stay healthy. So, I mean, they lost their offensive coordinator. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, they just, they drafted a really fast receiver. They drafted, they signed Odell Beckham. I don't know none of us know the behind the scenes kind of discussions that happened, the tensions. It seemed like it was getting really to the point of no return between the organization and Lamar Jackson, but that could have all just been a negotiation tactic, and they're all ready to move forward. They both wanted to make it work. They made it work. In retrospect, the volatility, I guess, was worth it for Lamar Jackson. He probably wouldn't have gotten this size contract with this size guaranteed money at $185 million had he signed before Jalen Hurts signed his contract, and also Kyler Murray and others that signed over the past 3 to 4 months. So maybe the holdout worked out. Maybe an agent could have, earned their keep and gotten him something structured in a way that was a little bit better and paid off their fee in the process as well. We'll never know. But, I think it's notable that somebody, his talent and him as a player warrants him. Like, he doesn't need anybody to convince anybody to pay him or to compensate him. His play and his professionalism as a player earned him the largest paycheck in NFL history.
Yeah. And that's what I said last week. And I wasn't saying it to discount or be disparaging towards Nicole Litt. And I said that I was just making sure that I was consistent, because I've said that ad nauseum, that it's insulting that people give so much credit to the agent when the negotiating was already done. And so that's why I'm happy to see Lamar Jackson got his payday for the negotiating he had already done, the MVP caliber season that he had and the continued success and how everything is tied toward his success. I'll go with, before I kick it over to you, same question, Big Flow Show. See, this is just an example. My man, Coach Patrick. What's up, Coach Patrick? Big old Jets fan. I'm inviting you all to the parade. See, you got to love Jets fans, man. I think they infused them with some form of delirious crack that none of us really can appreciate. The parade, man, what parade? Oh, Lord have mercy, boy. I love Jets fans. They think they're going to win now. Big Flow Show, I kick it over to you. We finally got what we were waiting on, which is a Lamar Jackson contract. And indeed, it's a contract with the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think that they can get over the acrimonious back and forth that has persisted over the last 3 seasons of extended negotiating now he finally has his contract? What say you?
I think Lamar has shown, if he has been unhappy, he was unhappy at 20 million. He's definitely happier at 50, right? So I think at the end of the day, he played his heart out before he thought he should have a contract, and he kept playing. People argue that he was hurt and he could have went back in. That might be something, but I think the organization paid him, so they're happy. They didn't have to guarantee the whole contract, so they're happy about that. I think he's the highest paid guy, so he should be happy. I think they're professionals, and they go in, they go right back at work, and it's like it never happened. That's the way I look at it. I'm happy to hear, and ETP seemed like he had a little more research before the show to say that he really didn't lose money. And what I didn't want to see happen with him, because I'm a fan, is that him trying to make a stand ends up costing him money, because of the past 2 seasons that he could have been paid. Does he recoup those dollars? And it sounds like from what Ellis said, looking into it more than I did, that he does recoup it. So I'm happy to see he was able to pull it off.
Well, the benchmark was 230 million before this year, right? So if we're talking a difference of 30 million, it's kind of, I don't know that it's that significant in either direction for it to matter. It was just like a lot of stress, and I'm probably no stress on anybody that was involved, but I would imagine the organization, because they didn't know if they were going to have to draft a quarterback or not, up until last week or up until, yesterday morning. But I don't know that the numbers, I don't think he lost, because the benchmark was 230 before the 255. So that's 25 million. What he was making the year before, if he had negotiated this deal 2 years ago, maybe it's 200. I don't know.
Maybe 200. And I will say this, their acts over the last several weeks suggested that we were going to get to this point, both in making sure they signed what they think will be a veteran wide receiver that can help. And then in the first round, they went and drafted Zay Flowers out of Boston College as a speedy, productive wide receiver. So it seems as though all is well that ends well. But in this episode of the prime rate, the rate is largely connected to the deals that have happened subsequent to the initial conversation about renewing his contract. So I guess all as well as it ends well. I said this from the beginning. If I was the Ravens, I'd have paid. I feel like the Ravens, they both won and they both lost, to be honest, because the Ravens should have got this done a long time ago. We wouldn't have had any of these conversations about whether or not they truly appreciate him. In addition, they could have got him for a lot less if it was before Deshaun Watson, if it was before Kyler Murray, if it was before, right, Jalen Hurts. They ended up paying more, so it's just interesting, man. We'll see.
If they had been aggressive about it before any of this happened, they would have, quote unquote, for the market, overpaid, but then immediately been 6th or 7th on the list.
Immediately. Yep. So interesting times, man. You want to get one last word in on it before we move on, Big Flo Show?
I think, it's not irreparable. He got more money than he would have got a couple years ago, so he doesn't feel like an idiot. They didn't, have to fully guarantee, a full contract, so they can feel like they still didn't do what they said they weren't going to do. And had he played a couple games, if we would have went a couple weeks in the season on that restricted salary cap or franchise tag, where he had to pay reduced money, I don't think they could have mended the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, that was disrespectful, but I feel like since it was really out there and they gave him his money anyway, it kind of doesn't matter. It was just business. I think you can chalk that up to business. But had that gone further into the season, I think you're going to say irreparable damage that could get fixed. So hopefully he goes on and beats the Jets in the playoffs and then loses to the Bears in the Super Bowl.
I mean, that franchise tag convinced him that he didn't need $45 million guaranteed money, basically.
That's basically what that was the tug of war. When it all says and done, that was the tug of war. So hope it all works out for all parties involved. Not so much so that they win the division, because it's all about the Browns, baby. But the previous conversation about Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and then seeing some of the reaction from some of the New York Jets fans, like my man, Coach Patrick, and knowing how delirious they are, it provokes me in this episode of the Prime Rate to think of other delirious New York fans. And the prime rate of being a New York fan is in full effect, because the New York Knicks, those New York Knicks, The ones who ain't been out of the second round in this century. The ones who haven't been out of the first round in the last 10 years. The ones that ain't won a championship since Phil Jackson was on the team. That's right, Phil Jackson. Those New York Knicks.
He's retired from coaching. that's terrible.
Those New York Knicks have advanced in what I thought was pretty dominant fashion, man. They advanced. New York Knicks move on, so the New York media is going to be live in effect, baby. And I'm going to get to the Miami Heat at the end, but the New York Knicks advanced. They played the Miami Heat. Let's hop into some NBA playoff stuff, man. The Knicks were the first team to advance in the East when they beat the Celtics. Congratulations. No, they weren't. Actually, 76ers advanced first, but in a competitive series, somewhat more competitive, the Knicks advanced, so congratulations to them. The Celtics closed out last night. Atlanta was on the wrong side of a gentleman's sweep. It looked like Atlanta was going to force another game, but indeed they did not. No, Atlanta won 2. They won 1 or 2.
Yep, that was game 6 last night.
Last night was game 6. All right. So they won 2. But unfortunately, they came up short. Trae Young was having a great game, seemed to run out of gas. Atlanta, I think, is going to have to restructure their entire roster to really be a competitive team. Trae Young is a great guard and can shoot from distance, but Trae Young is not going to win you a playoff series. And if you don't believe me, just look at the last 2 years. The last 2 years being played in the previous year where they really were making some noise. It's just tough to have a guard that size that is a defensive liability to dominate a series and win it for you. So I think Atlanta is under current reconstruction. The series that, and we said the 76ers is already advanced, so they're waiting. The Nuggets in the West, they're waiting. The Suns are waiting after they advance over the Clippers. I'm going to get back to that. The series that I really wanted to acknowledge that we'll get more of it tonight. Golden State got their mojo back. After going down 2, after being written off as old, after all the drama of Draymond Green and Sabonis, they have quietly, but not so quietly, rattled off 3 straight wins. One of them being the last win being on the road, which notorious throughout the year, they couldn't win on the road. Now they seem unbeatable just that quick. And Draymond Green has a 21-point night. All of the banter that was going on and the critique and criticism out the window, it's evidence that if you gonna come for the king, pun intended, as they play the Kings, if you gonna go for the king, you better not miss. And I really want to not like Golden State. You know what I mean? Everybody's just so handsome over there. They got the Splash Brothers and, Steph Curry and changed the whole game where AAU kids think that one step past half court is a good shot. I want to dislike them, but I damn sure can't disrespect them, man. Shout out to them for rattling off 3 games, 3 straight victories, and snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat. You can't write them off, man. And I said it. I at least alluded to it. I even think we had a segment last week. Is the dynasty over? Let me publicly apologize to all the light-skinnedness. I'm sorry. To all the Golden State fans around the world, I apologize. The king has to be dethroned. And they ain't ready for that yet. Shout out to them, man. They playing great basketball. I did want to get to a particular series before I get to Miami, because I got to talk about that. Kawhi Leonard ended up not playing the last 2 games of the Suns and the Clippers series. And even on this show, we talked about there's a difference between are you hurt or are you injured? And I want to publicly apologize to Kawhi Leonard because I put it out there, and it turns out that the tests show that not only does he have a torn meniscus, but he tore the meniscus after game 1 where he had 38 points. Came back in game 2 and scored 31 points. But I put it out there to just quickly, very quickly, because the prime rate episode forces us to deal with the reality that load management has allowed Kawhi Leonard's, air quote, prime years to be extended. And we look at load management as a negative. I have never been a big fan of it. I have challenged players because we always compare it to 80s, but there are a lot of players that played in the 80s that can't walk right now. Are we doing it a disservice by speaking of it just as fans and not considering the business decisions behind players like Kawhi Leonard and why they are implementing load management? Because now we see that indeed the man had a torn meniscus. I'll start with you on this one, ETP.
I mean, I think this one. So when we talk, I don't feel comfortable calling what Kawhi Leonard has ever done load management because clearly we don't know the extent of his injuries and if he's just sat out to say prepare for the postseason or if he just wasn't ready to go. I mean, Tyronn Lue said this is what we've been saving up for when he came in and he played in the first 2 games. But I mean, it's just hard to look at that completely as load management. Clearly, he's had some very serious injuries for the past, I guess, 5-6 seasons. And I don't even know. I mean, has load management extended his career or has he just had to continue to rehab? Then he come back and then he gets injured again and then he rehabs and he comes back and he gets injured again. I don't know. It's just, I think it's interesting on the flip side where we're talking about the NFL and there's this tug of war about guaranteed money, but Kawhi Leonard is not worrying if his checks are clearing until his contract is up.
He doesn't worry about it.
Like he has no, it doesn't matter if he never plays another game as long as he's still on the roster.
That's what Stephen A basically said. Stephen A said he would have Ballmer and front office for the Clippers force Kawhi's hand and encourage him to retire. Now, I like the exchange with JJ Redick, and we didn't pull it, but I'm sure you guys saw it. JJ Redick was basically like, you're proving that you have never played. You're proving by that statement that you have never played high-level basketball. And he went on to say that he got to witness firsthand seeing some of Kawhi Leonard's work ethic in his rehab, and it put a different spin on it.
It did, but I think there's still – so I think the argument was whether or not Kawhi is – I guess the worst. Stephen A. Smith said he's the worst superstar, which like outside of the human element of what he's going through, it's pretty much the case because you cannot rely on your superstar to actually perform when it's important, regardless of the reason. As a fan, the same way we dislike load management, we hate injuries. While even watching the NBA playoffs, you're seeing all these injuries impact the outcome of series, of games, of whoever's going to win the trophy. It's essentially just a medical experiment at this point versus watching, you're not seeing players play 82 games, not just because they're load managing, but there's just a ton of injuries. So in terms of being the worst superstar, like, in order to be a superstar, you have to be available. You have to, show up. You have to play especially in big games. And if you can't do that, maybe you're not a great superstar or somebody that can be, hold a franchise because you're just not as available or reliable in that situation. So whether or not he needs to retire or do whatever, if the organization is comfortable with it, if I'm the organization, I'd have questions where we basically said, we'll accept the limited availability throughout the regular season, but when the postseason comes, it's go time. And then he got injured again. And so it's really hard to put your stock in as a fan and as an organization in somebody that you just know is very physically damaged to the point where you never know if the next play is going to be the last play.
And look, Stephen A. is the king of provocative takes. So I don't know if Stephen A. even believed what he said when he said it. Some of it is the theater and the art of getting people to respond. Cool. But it's just hard for me to agree with that when there are superstars in respective sports that have never won a championship. This man has 2 championships.
But
And
he's
every
not
time
talking
he's
about
been there, he's
historically.
produced.
Right.
1 championship, right, before Siakam became Siakam, and I would argue that Siakam became Siakam because of some of the things he learned while Kawhi was there. That is unbelievable that he won with that run.
Yeah, but it's the same thing when players start aging and they're not able to produce at the level that they were producing when they were a champion or when they were a superstar. Injuries aside, if it was just noticeable that he's getting older, like he's not able to command the performance that he was in the past, there'd be all types of statements about how he needs to retire, he's dragging the team down, all of these things. So I don't attribute it to he was never a superstar, he's not a great Hall of Fame top 75 player, all of these things. But in the current moment, as a fan, and also looking at it from the organization's perspective, it's really hard to say this is a great piece of the puzzle because you don't know when or if you're actually going to get his contribution.
Right.
So the provocation, sure, but I think to the point of the statement, if you can't rely on your superstar, how great of a piece are they? Like if you don't know if they're ever going to be able to play, like there's an argument to be made that, I mean, you say it all the time on the show that, the greatest ability is availability, right? So do you go with somebody that's an all-star, not a Hall of Famer, that's going to give you, a Mikal Bridges who's going to give you 82? Or do you go with Kawhi who can give you Michael Jordan level performances, but you just don't know how many you're going to get out of him?
And remember, Mikal Bridges had 83 this year because of the trade. That man played 83 games. He could have let Kawhi borrow one. Bro, you borrow one of the games I played.
I mean, Kawhi makes $1 million a game. That's ridiculous.
Oh, meaning because of how many games he played.
Right.
Yeah. Because $1 million every time he goes on the court. He waits until that adds up and he goes out again. He waits until it adds up and he goes out again. It's a lot of money. He's a great player. I think part of the reason why people are so frustrated is the way his demeanor, sometimes choice of words. So I was really critical of him last week because of the use of the word soreness. That bothered me a lot because I'm sore now. I went before the show.
I think you called it moistness. If we can put
I got up to change my shirt and my back felt every birthday candle I had last year on it. I'm sore, but I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to do what I got to do. So maybe if they just worked on his PR a little bit more, he cared about his image, but he's kind of that, like, Kawhi doesn't care. He doesn't really get interviews. He could care less what anybody thinks. He does not care that we're talking about him on this show. It doesn't bother him. And when you see people who make so much and have so much talent, you start to feel somewhat like an expectation, which we shouldn't have in society, but we do have an expectation of how they carry themselves. And Kawhi just carries himself like he could care less all the time. And that, I think, makes it so people are more down on him. Otherwise, you feel sorry for him. You'd be like, damn, I feel bad. He's hurt again. But now people are like, man, this dude hurt again. You know what I mean? Like, he can own that. Not that he cares, which is the whole reason why I'm saying this, but he doesn't own it. He doesn't care. It's like whatever. I mean, these poor guys left. They were out there with Westbrook. That's it. Because we don't even talk about Paul George. We didn't expect him. What's wrong with Paul George anyway?
He got hurt, but we knew he wasn't going to play. And all the conversations about Kawhi Leonard's unavailability, it's interesting, man.
And then, man, the Clippers still, you got to think about that, what they're able to achieve. I mean, the games are still competitive, and they're like their 2 best players on the bench.
Tyronn Lue, the head coach, made sure he pointed that out. I don't know if that was just him making sure he's protecting his own job. There's another coach, but I'll leave the conversation where it is in terms of Kawhi Leonard. I just think that we think of these players in their prime. Your prime is it just goes so fast, man, that, to then say, as a Stephen A. Smith, to then say that we should force his retirement. That's essentially you're then saying that the ownership gets to dictate when that prime is. And That's where I disagreed with Stephen A. I liked JJ Redick's response to it, substantive. In addition to the shot that he took, that you obviously ain't played no high level basketball. Substantively, he was just talking about sort of, the actual injuries that Kawhi's had. And it's tough. It's tough to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to so if we're talking about like legacy, I just want to like hot take or just remind folks or give an opinion. If not for Kawhi Leonard, I believe that there would be no argument that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player to ever have lived based on the way he won finals MVP, locked down LeBron, and did not allow them to win a championship. And then the Miami Heat broke up after that. If that didn't happen, we probably would be having less of a debate of whether LeBron is the greatest player of all time.
So you're saying Kawhi's had an impact on that?
So I'm saying Kawhi is the main reason
why it's debatable. It's
so fuck Kawhi. That's what I should be saying. Now that you told me that, I hope his knee keep hurting. I hope it stays still.
That's pretty fair. He is the impediment that, I would. That's a great point. Stephen A. Smith wants them to walk him out to the pastures and make him retire.
I'm not saying he shouldn't consider retiring. I'm just saying there's a lot to be said about who Kawhi is at his best.
How old is Kawhi?
Kawhi is younger than KD. Kawhi's only, I think, 31 or 32.
Got so many years, so many millions left on those knees. He'll be all right. He got so many $1 million games left to play.
I think Kawhi is either 31, turning 32, or recently turned 32. Younger than KD at 35, which let's hop into. There's one more series. Well, before we get into that series, let's talk about tonight's game. Who you got winning? Memphis.
31. He's young.
31. Memphis goes to LA in a must game. It's a closeout. LeBron was pretty quiet last game. He even said it. He said, these are his words, so I quote, he said, I was shit. Where AD had a great game. I think 31 and 19. He had a great game. But they came up short. Memphis has to win in order to stay alive. They got to go to LA to do it. I'll start with you on this Big Flow show. Does LA close out tonight and continue the quest towards another LeBron championship?
What game is this?
This is game 6.
The last one, according to you.
You have my answer.
You've been saying LA in game 6 every time LA.
Yeah, I say Lakers is 6. And you ask me again? Everybody knows my answer.
ETP, do you agree with this gentleman that LA closes tonight and LA indeed wins in 6?
It's going to be tough. I will say, considering that LeBron had some good rest and didn't play last game, I think he shows up for this one since he was basically on autopilot last game. Hopefully he's back to full strength. Obviously he played in the game, but wasn't really fully impactful. So I think there's a sense of urgency where, they've got to turn it on. I think that they will. If they go back to Memphis, they're not, they're going fishing. So I think they're going to have a sense of urgency and they're going to close this out. Memphis is still young. I think, just the way that they've been able to psychologically affect Memphis, it'll come to fruition now. So I'll agree with Big Flow show for this round and say Lakers in 6.
I think the Lakers lose tonight. They got to go back to Memphis. And what I will say is when they go back to Memphis, I think that's when LeBron adds another chapter to the legacy and closes out in game 7. I think LA advances, but not tonight. Memphis wins tonight in LA to make it that much more interesting. And then they eventually go to a game 7. Other game tonight, who you guys got winning? Sacramento, Golden State, in Golden State. Golden State has not played well on the road. They've got to close out tonight. Do they do it? What do you say, ETP? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I think Golden State, just the experience that they have over Sacramento, I think they figured out actually a way to play with pace by bringing Draymond off the bench and, competing with Sacramento's speed. So Steph is a monster. I think he's going to have a big game. I think they're going to make a statement. I think they're back to, they turned the tides. They took one on the road. That's all they needed. I don't see Sacramento going into their house and taking one. So I'm going to say Warriors in 6.
The Warriors dynasty is just so interesting to me because it's had different chapters within the dynasty. But the dynasty itself, I would say in this episode of the prime rate, it still is in its prime. It's still developing and evolving, which is interesting. Big Flow Show, who do you got? Sacramento at Golden State tonight in what could be a closeout game for them. What say you?
I got to go Golden State. At the end of the day, you got to beat the champ to be the champ. I think they've been there before. They know what they're doing. Right now, they're full of confidence in Golden State, and Sacramento is full of doubt. Yeah. They just think we never done here. We've been here, man. When the champ starts to reel you in, it crumbles. So I think they win. I think they win going away tonight.
So I'm gonna agree with both of you. I think Golden State tonight. De'Aaron Fox, that hand, I think is just not 100%. Without 100% De'Aaron Fox, I don't know that Sacramento has a legitimate shot. They should have tried. They really needed to win. They really needed to win Game 5, and they didn't. And I think that's going to come back to bite them because they got to go to Golden State tonight, a place that has been hard to win for a long time, but even more so this year. They've shown how dominant they are at home. So I'm going with Golden State to win it and close it out. Now, last series is the 1 versus the 8 on the east side. Miami playing the play-in. Everybody knows I'm a Miami Heat fan, so I want to get all Miami on y'all. All right, Jimmy Butler just went ridiculous, averaging 37.6 points per game during the playoffs, shooting right at about 60%, 59.7% to be exact. And then the timeliness of the shots, the big shots that he just knocked down, big shot after big shot in both Game 5 and Game 6 of that series. Excuse me, in both Game 4 and Game 5 of that series, because Miami did embark on a gentleman's sweep. Beat the number 1 team. Granted, Giannis was unavailable for 2 of those games. Granted, he was unavailable for half of the Game 1, but the last 2 games, Games 3 and 4, Games 4 and 5, messing up the numbers. Giannis was Giannis, especially in Game 5. Other than the missed free throws, maybe his back led to that. You couldn't see any difference. He was just as physically imposing and dominant, but Miami wins. I think that Coach Bud, Milwaukee, he's got to be on the hot seat. But it was the first time in the post-game interview that we ever heard Giannis take issue so publicly and aggressively with a media person. And we've got that clip for you. So we'll play it here. Let us know what you think. We'll start analyzing afterwards. But here's Giannis being asked if, because they lost as a 1 seed in the first round, was the season a failure? And his
every
response,
year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, provide a house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it, Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure. That's what you're telling me. No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why are you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. There's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's going to win. And this year, somebody else is going to win. Simple as that. We're going to come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. Sorry that I didn't want to make it personal, because you asked me the same question last year, and last year I was in the right mind space to answer the question back, but I remember it.
What do we think here, man? I know that Generation Z is different, but in this episode of the Prime Rate, Giannis is absolutely in his prime. In this episode of the Prime Rate, championships, especially when you're the 1 seed and expectations are high, especially when the roster is built for you to win now, especially when you are coming off of the regular season where you had the best record. The value of that, there's a prime value on winning. Giannis in that particular response, I think, would have us to believe that winning isn't everything. And part of me is understanding what he was trying to say, but his rhetorical question about Michael Jordan played for 15 years. He only won 6 championships. Are the other 9 years a failure? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Michael Jordan's answer to that, hell yeah, that was a failure. We didn't win. But Giannis, and asking it rhetorically, Giannis in his approach to this particular reporter, Giannis in what seems to be his mentality would suggest that he doesn't believe it's that binary. Either you win or you're a failure. As he described it, there's steps, and it's not, everything's not a failure when you lose in sports. I gotta start with you on this one, Big Flow Show. What say you?
It's hard. I hear where he's coming from. I think, again, I don't know how well he wrote it out and thought about every sentence he said. Some of the things he said were a little questionable. If Giannis wasn't such a hard-working player, if he wasn't such a warrior, if Giannis didn't come so far as a basketball player since he first entered the NBA to get to be, top of the mountain, I would, let me say this, Charles Barkley says that at this point, whatever, you're like, yeah, you're just saying that because, or pick somebody else. Charles never won one. He never won one. You're like, all right, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But seeing as he's been a champion and seeing as he has worked hard and he's come so far, it kind of gives him a little more leeway. I think of a Michael Jordan commercial that they had, and he talks about all the shots that he misses and all the different things that he has failed, and that's why he's successful.
Right.
But he uses the word failed. Like, I failed so much, and that's why I'm successful. So he's owning it as fail. But to say,
yeah, but that was written by Nike. Nike wrote that.
No, but I'm just saying, nobody complained about that commercial, right? Nobody said, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're saying it." But there's a difference between failing and being a failure, right? Losing and being a loser. That ultimate title of failure. So this whole season was a failure. I think that was the one kind of cuts. It's like, yeah, we failed, but I'm not a failure. You know what I mean? You may have done something one time or something happened, and to throw that big title on it. I mean, at the end of the day, they had a big letdown. I think when the sorry to shoot your boys, but when the Patriots went undefeated and they lost in the Super Bowl, that was bad. Whatever, it's still a great team, right? It's still great. So when you just call them a failure, it looks at that tough. Golden State, when LeBron came back and stole greatness from him. I mean, that still was probably the greatest team besides the Bulls, single season team ever. You know what I mean? You look at it. So I see where he feels like he's cut and he comes back. I don't know. I mean, I think I agree with what he's saying, is that this is a piece. This is steps. This is the process. While they're trying to become great, Golden State is a dynasty. They didn't win all their championships in a row. If they find a way to win this year, they won last year. They took some years off, and they're taking steps to it. So when you look back in retrospect and think about the greatness of Golden State, you can't be, unless, people are going to say, but they got this. But LeBron got them when they were, the 72 and 10 team. LeBron got them
73-9.
73-9 team. 72 and 10 was the Bulls. 73-9 team. Whatever. Does that mean that when you look at the goal said this wasn't a dynasty. Nah, they got beat, but there's steps to it, and they came back and they've won championships since then. I think that's kind of where he was going.
Yeah.
I don't know Giannis's personality very well. I think that's kind of where he was going.
I mean,
he may not have chosen all the best words in that, but
and he apologized twice. I don't mean to make it personal, so he did it in a nice way.
He's a real nice dude.
He's nice about it. He came back to it. I didn't want to make it personal, which is a terrible Giannis impersonation. Sorry, Giannis. But the gist of the matter is, because we always laughed, Coach Lou Holtz was talking about a player. I'm not going to say the player's name. Such and such stole a bike, but he is not a thief. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, technically, if you stole a bike, your ass is a thief. And all the reporter was asking him was this season a failure? ETP, what am I missing, man? Yes, it was a failure. Am I overreacting? Yes, my teammate is a thief. He stole a bike. Even if he was only a thief for that moment and that day. Even if he was only a thief out of necessity because he had to get to a class or he was going to go give his lung to somebody for a transplant. He still stole that bike. That'll make you a thief. They came up short. Isn't it a failure? What am I missing, ETP?
Yeah, I mean, I think the parallel that you're drawing is kind of going back to this point of, you can fail but don't have to be a failure, right? So, like, you might say he stole something so he's a thief, but, like, I think it's more of, are you judging the action or are you judging the person, right? And so in this situation, yes, the season was a failure. They failed to live up to expectations. They failed to beat a play-in team who was the first play-in team to advance in the playoffs. They were the number one seed. Like, they have three of the best defensive players in the league on the team, but they're giving up, 42. They're giving up almost 100 points over 2 games to one player who essentially beat them on his own for the most part. And so all of that is the case where, yeah, the season, they failed at delivering on the expectations of the season. No, Giannis is not a failure. No, the team is not a failure. Yes, what they can gain something from this to make it a full to make this a full, recovery to get into next season. So ultimately, it's I think everything that he was saying was valid, but I do think that, the failure, the season was a failure, but it's all the thing. Like, if you lose, just because you lose, don't lose the lesson. I think that's kind of what Giannis was trying to say, but it doesn't discount the fact that they failed at delivering on the expectations. Now, if they had never made the playoffs and this was the first time making it to the playoffs, no, it's not a failure. It's a stepping stone, but the expectations are much higher for them. They were expected to go to the finals. They were expected to win a championship. They didn't come close to delivering on that. So there's some failure in that.
Well, on the first of all, Big Flow Show is crazy. For anybody that wonders why we laughing, there's a man amongst us that is bonkers. Like, if we could share all his thoughts with y'all, the dude is crazy.
I can't. I'll be in jail if everything I said out loud. Yeah. I say I got it sometimes. So DM me. We'll talk about the story. No, so do you think, that it's different because they've already won a championship? Like, had this been the beginning of the work, do we look at the season and say, all right, they're getting there. Now they just got to figure the playoffs
out? I think if it was a level past what they accomplished previously, like if they went to the finals and lost last year and then they exited in the first round this year, yeah, it's a failure. Like, they're not progressing on, what they've been building. So this was a backtrack, and it was ultimately the season they failed at the goal. The mission was to get to the championship, and they failed at it. Now, Sacramento losing this round, is that a failure? Absolutely not, because
I see. Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying, because they haven't done it. This is their stepping stone.
They're building. They're trying to get to the point.
Yeah. It was just interesting that he went that deep into that question. And maybe, again, it's less than an hour after a very disappointing outcome to a season that had so much promise. But on the reverse of that, you're not going to hear me say, as a Miami Heat fan, yeah, we won, but we ain't no winners. Like, I just think you are what you are. In that moment, like that season, coming up short of what the expectations were, and expectations for a guy who is a two-time MVP and dominated the season, was in the running the entire season for a third MVP trophy with a roster that has warranted them having the best record in NBA, and everyone thought that they were going to basically skip into at least the Eastern Conference Final, if not the championship. This reporter asking him if the season was a failure, I think my answer would be like, yeah, it's a failure, right? Because we didn't get where we were supposed to get, and Generation Z, and not to make it political with snowflakes, it's just we just think differently, I think, than we being just me. I'm gonna say me. I think differently than a lot of these players, and I love Giannis. I think he's a great player, but the season was a failure.
Yeah.
And I think that the head coach has a lot to do with that. I think he's going to be summarily walked out the door, right? 0.5 seconds left in regulation. He doesn't call a timeout and advance the ball and at least get a shot. He doesn't even get a shot. Right?
That play was a failure.
A failure. And the only thing that was more laughable and more of a failure-like decision is when we advanced, being Miami Heat, and come out the timeout, I guess he just thought we were going to shoot a three because he takes Brook Lopez, the only 7-footer that he has, Mr. Defense himself, out of the game. I'll leave Brook Lopez at least to just contest the inbound. You got to throw it over him. It makes it a little harder to get the ball to Jimmy Butler, which that play was just, oh gosh, what an amazing play. But I think Coach Bud is on his way out, and you could answer the question and give factors for why it was a failure. But indeed, I just think it was a failure. All right, man. We'll go home on this, man. Everybody's got their Ball Hog Sports Talk highlight moment. We did want to acknowledge Tank Davis defeated Ryan Garcia. They fought in Vegas. Great situation. Ryan Garcia sat down after a body blow. He was knocked down for, I think, only the second time in his career earlier in the fight, and then TKO because of the body blow. He was not able to continue. Great fight for boxing. Great fight for Tank Davis. Even Ryan Garcia, I think, has probably earned himself enough respect to get a rematch at some point. Maybe not right away. So shout out to boxing. I'll start with you on your Ball Hog Spotlight. Moment of the week. We'll go with you, Big Flow Show. This is the prime rate episode of the Ball Hog Sports Talk, and we've got our Ball Hog Sports Talk highlight moments of the week. Big Flow Show, you kick us off.
Before that, I want to invite my man Sheldon to give us his picks of the week. He's been doing a little something. We talked about fighting, so think about fighting. Look in the comments for Sheldon George picks of the week. See if that can be proof. If you lose, we're going to drop his ass just like we prime time. But if you start winning, then we're going to start claiming that we want some of the win. We'll figure that out. Anyway,
we put the handicapper in the transfer portal.
The handicapper in the portal. No, Brittney Griner came out and said that she is no longer going to play outside of the country unless it is to represent the USA. So all you fake patriots out there that want to jump on people for that, she covered herself. She would play for the USA. But then she mentioned that there's she has to do it because of the pay gap. And kind of brought that up as an issue, whatever. I look at that and just say, hey, I get it. She doesn't want to leave the country anymore, and things are bad. And there's viewers out there that feel like hey, you just broke the law and do whatever. But it's different. You go to different places, and things you can look at losing 10 years of your life for something so small as having some marijuana, which is legal in most of the United States, on you. So I get what she's saying. The pay gap is probably the big thing that jumps out to me, where I think the pay gap is where it's supposed to be right now, but I do think that they can make some changes. After seeing what we saw in the NCAA tournament, women's basketball is entertaining, period. 9.9 million people would agree with me from watching that game.
On average, it got up to 12, but yeah,
12 million people watch that game and would disagree with you to say women's basketball is boring. They just have to find a way to market it, and they got to find a way to put some money behind it, and then no one is going to go to jail for 9 years for smoking a vape pen in Russia.
ETP. we pass the ball over to you for your Ball Hog Sports Talk highlight moment of the week. What say you?
So coming off of what you're saying about college basketball, so more fireworks with the transfer portal, throwing it back to that conversation. Haley Van Lith of Louisville, All-American, has transferred to LSU. She was also kind of a villain or character villain in the NCAA tournament. A lot of trash talk, a lot of, I guess negative publicity. So she'll join Angel Reese and
This is your
LSU.
friend. The friend of my enemy is my friend, right?
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how she ended up there. Because isn't it the same Louisville
So
player that got
Caitlin
into
Clark,
it with Caitlin Clark?
she got into it with Caitlin Clark, and now they're teaming up to be the evil empire. So it's even better for next year. Now LSU is truly the villain. And we'll see some real interesting activity once the season starts again. So the transfer portal working in favor of fans and players and the sport overall in this instance.
Awesome. I like that. Because we did talk a lot about transfer portal. My Ball Hog Sports Talk highlight moment of the week is a personal one for me. My son, the Deuces, baby, and that's Deuces apostrophe S, because this is his world. It's Deuces world, baby, and I'm just here trying to support it. But my oldest son, Bray, who I like to call Big Deuce, pitched for the very first time. We're not a baseball family. I've been trying to get him to play baseball, but his school requires him to play a sport. He had to play, not had to. He chose to play baseball. And for the first time in his second year playing baseball, and believe me, there's a lot of up, down. There's a lot of awkward moments because this ain't his first sport. It's not his second, third, or fourth sport, but it's the sport that he's playing. But the coach has been working with him. He plays quarterback in football, but again, we don't play baseball. And he gave him a chance to pitch. He closed out yesterday, did a great job. And seeing your son on the mound is just like, the anxiety that I had each pitch was something unique, man. So for those parents that are in baseball that have pitchers, I can only imagine what y'all go through on a game by game basis. It was pretty anxious moments, but closed out the game. They won, and to see my son on the pitcher's mound was really cool, man. Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. A bunch of businessmen, 3 of us, get together and we discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. Today's episode went by the name of the prime rate. We gave some education on what that means from a lending standpoint, but we also gave an education on what that means from a sports, business, and entertainment standpoint for the week. There's a lot of discussion about Coach Prime, what's happening in Colorado, and the transfer portal, what's going on throughout the country. Right? We talked about the NFL draft and the first rounders, the big marquee signings that happened at the quarterback position with Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. We talked about the NBA playoffs and so many different storylines there. Kawhi Leonard's injury and him being in his prime, but being asked to retire. In some cases, by some pundits, saying he should be forced to retire. The Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Bucket, shout out to you, man. Let's go Heat as we take on the New York Knicks. The Knicks and the Heat going into the next round of the playoffs is something that the NBA had to be dreaming about. 2 fan bases that are yearning for that matchup. So we talked about a lot in sports, business, entertainment, including boxing. We even alluded to the NHL and, the Devils and the Rangers. So we've got a real wide array of things that we can discuss. Again, it's 3 businessmen getting together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. You had the Big Flow Show in the building. You had ETPLs, the producer, in the building. I am your boy, B Brown ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Barazy. This has been the Ball Hog Sports Talk, the prime rate episode. Like we ask you every week, please like, please comment, please share, please tag a friend, please tag a foe, please tag anybody and everybody that you know to help us be more entertaining in sports and business to more people. And with that, enjoy your weekend. Be blessed. All great wishes to you and your family. Catch us here next week. We is out. Peace.